In California, legal parcels and buildable parcels are not the same thing. That causes a lot of confusion. I help clients and potential clients understand the difference quite a bit. So I wanted to put together a short video that explained the difference between legal parcels and buildable parcels. So I want to go ahead and define those things. These aren't official definitions. Those are my definitions. So what is a legal, in air quotes, what is a legal parcel? A legal parcel is a parcel that has been validly created according to the rules in place at the time of the creation and that hasn't been merged afterwards. And that legal parcel can be bought and sold. Okay, now that definition is going to apply in most parts of the United States, but it's tailored for the work I do here in California. Okay, so let's just review that definition. There's 2 or 3 parts to it. Okay, so a legal parcel is validly created according to the rules in place at the time. So there are illegal ways to create parcels. If you do that, you've got problems. Doesn't mean you can't fix it, but you want to make sure that your parcels are created in a legal manner. As an example, in California, you typically can't subdivide land by deed anymore. Used to be able to do that. There's a process we have now where we regulate the subdivision of land for good reasons. And so in California, if you want to create a new parcel from a bigger parcel, you've got to go through that process. So that's what I mean by validly created according to the rules. In place at the time, that means you got to look at the historical context. Those rules have changed over time. So as long as the parcel was created according to the rules in place at the time of creation, then you should have a legally valid parcel. And then finally, the other part of that definition is the parcel hasn't been merged after the fact. So you can create a parcel validly according to the rules, a legal parcel, that then is later merged either through action by the landowner or action by the government agency or sometimes by legislation. So in some parts of California, they've gone in at the county or the city level and they've said, if your parcel meets all these requirements, they're going to be automatically merged unless you appeal that by a certain date. And so even if a parcel is legally created, it could later be merged. And when it's merged, that means it disappears, right? It becomes part of a larger parcel. So if your parcel is validly created according to the rules in place at the time, and it hasn't been merged, then you've got a legal parcel. What does that mean? In California, that means you've got a parcel you can buy and sell. That's all it means. Doesn't mean you can build. It means you've got a parcel you can buy and sell. That's what that means. Okay, so what do we mean when we say buildable parcel? What's that? So I want to give you a definition there. So this is a buildable parcel is a parcel that you can obtain a building permit for if reasonable conditions are met and you can practically perform construction. Okay, now let me break that definition down a little bit because it has a couple parts as well. So, a buildable parcel means you've got a reasonable shot at getting a building permit. Okay, so if they're going to require you to build the Golden Gate Bridge to get your building permit, you may not have a buildable parcel, right? Because that's not reasonable. So, some parcels, in theory, you could get a building permit, but for all practical purposes, the requirements are going to be so crazy that it's not financially feasible to do that, then it's not really a buildable parcel. So that first requirement, you got to be able to get a building permit with some reasonable effort, right? Meet some reasonable conditions. And then secondly, you got to be able to practically construct on it. So if you've got a parcel that's in the middle of a national park and there's no land access and everything's got to be helicoptered in, you may be able to get a building permit for that parcel, and you may be able to meet the conditions of the building permit. They may be reasonable, but you might not practically be able to construct. And there's other, if you're buying a piece of swampland, you might not be able to practically construct on that. So practically constructible is another part of what's in my definition for a buildable parcel. And the reason why this is so important, one of the reasons, is a lot of parcels get bought and sold in California. And, if you ask the real estate agents, they'll tell you, oh yeah, you can build on this. And then a lot of times we work for clients that have bought a piece of land and then they find out after the fact that that's not true. They can't build for one reason or another, or it's going to be really expensive to get that parcel to be buildable. I just had a call last week from a guy that was being sold 2 parcels of land in Southern California, and they're 2 adjacent parcels, so they're next door to each other, and he can't build on either one of them. They don't meet the requirements of the local zoning. Now, they're legal parcels, they can be bought and sold, but you can't build on them. And that happens a lot. So you got to be really careful, potentially as a real estate investor or buyer, that you're not being sold a parcel that you can't build on if that's what you plan to do. And you can't always trust your real estate agent, unfortunately. It's always good to get a land attorney, help from a land attorney or a land surveyor before you make that purchase decision. So I just wanted to talk for a few minutes about tax assessor parcels, because that causes people a lot of confusion. Part of the problem we have in California, and I'm sure this is true in other places too in the United States, is people assume if they have a tax assessor parcel that they have a legal parcel and a buildable parcel. That is not true. You might not have either. So a tax assessor parcel may be neither legal nor buildable. In other words, you can't buy and sell it and you can't build on it. It could be legal. The tax assessor parcel could be a legal parcel but not a buildable parcel. Or it could be both. A tax assessor parcel could be legal and buildable. So how do you know the difference? You got to call a guy like me and get help, right? I can help you figure out what those tax assessor parcels mean. I had another call a couple months ago from a commercial real estate broker in the Bay Area. He had 6 or 7 assessors parcels, all adjacent next door to one another, that he was trying to sell for a client, and they were going to list them as 7 separate parcels. And we got in and looking. I think by the time we got done, we realized he only had 3. He only had 3 parcels. He didn't have 7. Well, that's going to make a huge difference on the purchase price potentially, right? The selling price. So it's important. You can't just go off what's on the tax assessor map. So I just want to give 2 examples of parcels that could be legal but not buildable. One is if you got a parcel along the river, so it's river bottom, it's riparian woodland. That might be a legal parcel, but it's zoned open space, right? So you could own it, and you could hunt and fish on it. You could, picnic on the bank of the river, and you could do other things that property owners get to do. Prevent other people from using it, rent it out for weddings, whatever. But you might not be able to build on it, right? It's probably in a flood zone. It's zoned open space. So that's an example of a legal parcel that can be bought, sold, rented, financed with, but you can't build on it. Another is a farmland parcel. So sometimes in the Central Valley, we'll get farmland parcels that you can't put a home on, but it can be farmed, and it can be leased, it can be rented, it can be bought and sold as a farmland parcel. So those are a couple examples. Again, why is this important? People get confused. They make assumptions. They look at the tax assessor parcel and assume they can build on every tax assessor parcel. That causes problems because a large portion of the value of a piece of real estate, in many cases, is in its value as a potential building site. If you look at 2 parcels next door to each other, vacant parcels, one you can build on and one you can't, they're going to likely have significantly different values. So that's why it's important. That's why people get sued when they expect they're buying a buildable parcel and find out after the fact that it's a legal parcel but not buildable. They get upset, and sometimes they sue, and I understand why. Now, there's some questions that we haven't talked about that I hope to cover in a different set of videos. How do you determine what's a legal parcel and what's not a legal parcel? That's not always clear cut. How do you determine if you have a legally buildable parcel? In other words, a parcel that you could legally build on but may not be practically buildable. And then how do you determine if a parcel's both legally buildable and practically buildable? And then if you have a parcel that isn't legal or a parcel that isn't buildable, legally buildable or practically buildable, what can you do about it? All right, there's different solutions to those 2 or 3 different types of problems. We'll talk about it some more in the future. But this is just an introduction. Hopefully I did a good job. You understand what the differences are between a legal parcel and a buildable parcel. Really important thing if you're going to be buying and selling real estate in California to understand.